This meeting is called to order. Welcome back, everyone, to a new school year and to a new governance model. We will learn and grow and get our way through to a system that works best for students and staff. So we're going to have our land acknowledgement, and then we'll stand for the singing of our canon.
We would like to acknowledge
We would like to acknowledge
that the land on which we gather here today
was used by the Haudenosaunee,
Anishinaabe, and Neutral people.
We also acknowledge the enduring presence
and deep traditional knowledge,
les lois et les philosophies traditionnelles
of the indigenous people
with whom we share this land today.
With whom we share this land today.
With whom we share this land today.
I am serving as committee chair pro tem in accordance with the board's bylaws, and will be serving in this capacity until completion of the election of the Business Services Standing Committee Chair. The board's bylaws state that the director, as chair pro tem, shall name 2 staff members to act as scrutineers for the election of chair and vice chair. Associate Director Bill Lemon and Superintendent Nick Landry will be fulfilling this role. So we will start with nominations for committee chair. Nominations are to be made verbally, and no seconder is required for a nomination. A trustee cannot nominate more than 1 candidate. Once nominations have been closed, each candidate will be provided an opportunity to speak to their nomination should they accept it. Are there any nominations for the position of committee chair? Trustee Weston?
I would like to nominate Trustee Pankowski.
Trustee Weston has nominated Trustee Piakowski. Are there any further nominations? Trustee Piakowski, do you accept this nomination?
I do, with thanks to my nominator, and appreciate the acclamation.
So Trustee Piakowski is acclaimed as Business Services Standing Committee Chair. So welcome, Trustee Piakowski, as Chair of the Business Services Standing.
guess I should have put my name. This one. Not want anyone to confuse us.
Scott's.
Okay. Okay. We're moving on to the election of vice chair. Similar process. Thank you to Board Chair Radlin for acting as chair pro tem. It's now time for the nomination of vice chair of the Business Services Standing Committee. Again, nominations are to be made verbally. No seconder is required for a nomination. Trustee cannot nominate more than one candidate. As nominations have been closed, each candidate will be provided with an opportunity to speak to their nomination should they accept it. Are there any nominations for the position of committee vice chair? Trustee Cody.
I'd like to nominate trustee Joanne Watson.
Thank you, Watson. And are there any further nominations?
Hybrid.
Are there any further nominations for vice chair? I'll ask a final time. Any further nominations? I'll declare nominations closed. Trustee Weston, did you accept the nomination for vice chair?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
We
you,
will
Trustee Cody.
declare Trustee Weston claimed as vice chair. And set this aside. We now move on to the approval of the agenda, which was distributed on Friday. Could I have a mover for the agenda as distributed? Oh, thank you. We have an additional delegation, Paul Stevens, which explains why Paul Stevens is here. Welcome. And so could I have a mover with the addition of the delegation from Paul Stevens? Trustee Radlin and seconded by Trustee Weston. All those in favor of approving the agenda with that addition? And that is everyone. All right. I don't have any announcements and don't believe there are any. No? All right. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Delegations. So we had one on the agenda already, and is Emily Pike appearing virtually then?
Correct.
Okay. And please. The delegations. So we'll wait. Good evening, Emily. Can you hear us? Yes? Okay.
Yes, I can.
All right, welcome to the meeting. I'm Trustee Kwiatkowski, and I've been elected as chair of the Business Services Standing Committee. This is new to us. This is the first meeting of the Business Services Standing Committee. And you are the first of two delegations. The other one is here in person, but you were in first. I'm going to read the delegation procedure once for both of you. So in accordance with the board's bylaws, delegations have up to 5 minutes to address the board. Exceptions to this rule are permitted only through a vote taken and supported by a majority of trustees. Delegates are expected to refrain from the use of abusive or derogatory language at all times, and the chair may expel or exclude from any meeting any persons who engage in this or any other form of improper conduct. Discourteous language, reference to personalities, or statements contravening the Ontario Human Rights Code or the Charter of Rights and Freedoms will not be tolerated. Courtesy and respect for others must be displayed at all times. Delegations may not deviate from their script. When it is time for your presentation at the meeting, I will announce your name and ask you to begin. So that will be momentarily. At the beginning of your presentation, the timer will be set for 5 minutes. When 4 minutes have passed, I will advise you that you have 1 minute remaining to bring the presentation to a close. Following each presentation, trustees will have the opportunity to ask questions only for clarification relating to your remarks. They are not permitted to discuss or debate the issue at any time. If the item you're addressing is listed on the agenda and yours is Ms. Pike, then trustees will discuss the matter at the appropriate time. If your issue is not listed on the agenda, then trustees may opt to refer it to staff for follow-up or request that it be included on a future meeting agenda or add the item to the meeting agenda, which requires a 2/3 vote of trustees present. At the discretion of the chair, the director may request an opportunity for staff to provide clarity to the delegation in order to assist trustees in understanding the matters. In-person delegations are welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but are not obligated to do so. They may withdraw from the meeting at any time during the meeting proceedings. Virtual delegations will be removed from the Zoom meeting after trustee questions, but are invited to watch the rest of the meeting. So committee meetings will be posted on YouTube, but are not being broadcast live. So you'll be able to see the recording of the rest of the meeting tomorrow if you're so interested. So with that being said, Ms. Pike, I allow you to begin. Your 5 minutes start now.
Okay, thank you. I can't actually see if slides are being presented. Can someone, oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, you can move to the next slide, please. So thank you all for your time and consideration today. I'm here to talk about how my daughter was misclassified in the French immersion lottery, how a policy previously on the WRDSB website wasn't applied, and the impact that that had on my daughter's education and our family, in the hopes that you can support me by advocating for a reversal of the decision to deny my daughter a spot at Southridge. Next slide, please. So in order for us to all be on the same page, I'd like to highlight some key terms that matter to this conversation. So according to Administrative Procedure 1000, French Immersion Elementary, under definition 2.1, a designated school is one where a child attends for French immersion when their home school does not have French immersion. And that's us. Our family attended Southridge for 6 years, and our home school, Forest Hill, does not offer French immersion. And then on the other side of that, an out-of-boundary student is one where a student's home school offers French immersion, but they still attend another school. Next slide again, please. So the procedure goes on to say, and I'm going to read this for you, homeschool students and students with a designated school sibling in French immersion will be placed first. Note, this only applies if the sibling attends French immersion at the homeschool/designated school when the applicant enters grade 2. So my son had attended Southridge since grade 1, but was headed through automatic enrollment to his next school of West Heights to continue the French immersion program when we applied. But let's put a pin in that for a moment and move to the next slide, which talks about the lottery priority. So I applied for the French immersion program on the first day that parents were able to, back in January 2025. According to that same procedure, students are prioritized in the lottery first for homeschool students and students with designated school siblings in French immersion at that school when the applicant enters grade 2, then to homeschool students and designated school students without siblings in French immersion, and finally, third is for out-of-boundary students. but my daughter was mislabeled as out of bounds instead of designated school. She was placed in the third tier of the lottery instead of the first, which excluded her from getting a spot in the class. Next page. There is one other procedure that was not followed in classifying my daughter for the French Immersion Lottery. As of Friday, September 5th of this year, the board procedure on the website indicated that a student whose sibling was leaving a K-6 school but headed into grade 7 at a 7-8 French immersion school would be permitted to stay in that same category. When this information from the website was shared with me 2 weeks ago, I emailed asking why this wasn't applied to my daughter, and in response, the board administrators thanked me for pointing it out and told me they would remove it from the website. And they did. As of Tuesday, September 9th, that statement no longer exists on the website. So the board removed the exception that allowed my daughter to be included in the first tier of the lottery as someone with a sibling in the school. And that rule equalized the disparity between a K-6 and a K-8 school. And when confronted with this, the board erased the evidence of it. Next slide, please. So what does this all mean? It means that my daughter was improperly placed into the out of bounds category, not the designated school category. It means she was denied sibling priority because my son was headed to another school, even though she should have been covered by the K-6 versus K-8 exception. All of this equaling her being put to the tier 3 of the lottery, putting her at the bottom and excluding her from the class and school that we applied to.
1 minute.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So I respectfully am looking to the Board of Trustees to ask the WRDSB to reconsider their position, properly classify my daughter as a designated school student, apply the K-6 exception, and allow her a spot in the Southridge class this year. Next slide. I just want to thank you guys for your time and consideration and open it up to any questions you may have.
Trustees have any questions for the delegation? Trustee Watson.
Thank you. My question has to do with the designation. I don't know if you could put that slide back up. If that's possible.
That would be slide 3.
Is that the slide you were looking for,
Yes,
Trustee
yeah,
Watson?
that's it. Thank you. And so just a clarification. So when you were applying for French immersion, were you told about this, or like, I guess I don't understand why you were classified as, you know, out of bounds.
I am not sure, sorry. I'm not sure about that myself. I only learned about this classification when the board sent me their policy defining it. Before that, I had always been told we were out of bound students. Both my kids were out of bound students, but it's not actually the case because they are designated school students, because our homeschool doesn't have French immersion. So the lottery should have been applied in a different way to our family than it was.
Any
Thank
follow-up,
you.
Trustee Watson?
So that's fine. Thank you.
Trustee Radlin?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Emily, for this presentation and for seeking clarification. I have a question. Was your daughter no longer a designated student because her brother had moved to West Heights when she entered grade 2? Is that the issue? So if he had still been at Southridge when she entered grade 2, she would have been designated? Is that your understanding?
I can answer. That's correct. Initially the entry grade was grade 1 for French immersion. So when we chose Southridge as a family, we chose it knowing that in a few years, my daughter would be coming behind going into grade 1 French immersion and my son would still be in grade 6. So they changed it to grade 2. And then because my son was moving on to grade 7, they did not consider her to have sibling priority, even though my son and her were both in that school at the time that we applied. But in the year that she's moving into grade 2, he's gone on to West Heights, which is an automatic enrollment for him. I didn't have to do anything. They just assume this child is moving on to French immersion for 7-8. They automatically put him in. But my daughter did not get that same kind of automatic assumption that she would be going into grade 2 French immersion because my son is still in the French immersion program. They just said, he's not in this school, it doesn't matter. And they actually delisted us from the school and told us to go back to our home school.
Thank you.
Any further questions from trustees? Trustee Ramsey.
Another question, and this wonder if it's in order then to move this motion to refer the delegation to staff.
To refer it to staff for further review. Is there a seconder for that motion? Trustee Cody. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of referring it to staff? And anyone opposed? Okay, so this will be referred to staff for further review, and I'm sure someone will be in touch with you. And thank you for your delegation tonight.
Thank you everyone for your time.
Okay, Paul Stevens, you are here talking about the change in French immersion procedure, which is on the agenda. So we don't have to add it to the agenda if people choose to. So your 5 minutes starts now.
Good evening, trustees. Applicants for French immersion fall under Administrative Procedure 1000, most recently updated December of 2024. This procedure governs how admission is determined through a lottery system, where sibling priority, just discussed, has historically helped ensure households are kept together. Beginning with the 2026-27 school year, that sibling consideration will be phased out. At a RAPC meeting last spring, staff explained this as an equity change. Later, I was told it was really a matter of fairness. Either way, this change removes a practical safeguard that has long supported families and the success of the program. Yes, the current system is not perfectly fair. Some schools offer French immersion while others don't. Some children walk to their school while others must be driven outside their neighborhood and community. Some must change schools after several years in order to enroll in French immersion, while others remain in a comfortable environment. These statements are not criticisms, they are simply the realities of running a program with limited resources. But fairness is not the only consideration. Sibling priority exists because households function better when children attend the same school. It minimizes transportation burdens, lowers the risk of attrition over time. This is a theory, it's visible in how the system has worked up until now. I know families who wanted their children in French immersion, but ultimately declined because they couldn't manage the logistics of driving to multiple schools. If that is already happening now, this change will make it worse. Removing sibling priority increases the likelihood that parents must shuttle young children between different schools every day. That burden is not equitably shared. For some families, it will mean the difference between participating in French immersion and giving it up entirely. For others, it will mean enrolling a child, then later withdrawing when the transportation load becomes unsustainable. We should expect higher attrition, and not because of academic struggle, but because the system itself has created unnecessary obstacles. What is also troubling is how this decision was made. Because it is an administrative procedure and not a board policy, there was no community consultation. Parents weren't asked. I've spoken with trustees and administrators who weren't even aware of this change at all until I mentioned it to them direct conversation. This should not happen. Decisions that so directly impact families and programs should be transparent and accountable. This change does not take place for over a year. That means there is still time. It is based on some narrow notion of fairness while ignoring predictable harms. It will drive attrition. It will make participation impossible for many households, and it was made without consultation with families. The board should not allow an administrative tweak to quietly reshape a program in ways that undermine its accessibility and success. This particular fairness issue can be resolved by simply referring to it as a lottery for households, as opposed to a lottery for individual students. We can recognize the imperfections of the current system while still defending a procedure that keeps households together and helps the children thrive. This change does not need to happen.
Trustees, do you have any questions of clarification for this delegation? Trustee Watson?
Thank you. Through you to delegation, you had mentioned just that a lottery for families or households. You want to just on that?
So that's a simple way that the previous, or I guess current system could be framed, right? It's a lottery application system. The sibling consideration means previously it was just a lottery for households. That a household applied, a household got access to the program, and that ensured that that household could continue to have access to the program for subsequent children. Right? So if it's a question of fairness, we phrase it as a lottery for households, and it resolves that concern.
Any follow-up, Trustee Watson? Trustee Radlin?
Thank you, through you, Chair, to the delegate. Mr. Stephen, thank you for your presentation. Do you see the current system, do you see this change as one that is, that you have said that current change is one that is detrimental to households? And I'm wondering if there is any perception in terms of accessibility. So I certainly understand having to move children between schools, but I'm wondering if you see this also as a question of accessibility, so having the ability to participate in the program.
So my view here is that this is a balance of some attempt at fairness with very practical considerations. Okay, children do better when they're at the same school as their siblings. Parents who don't have to shuttle their kids to multiple schools every day are going to have more time to spend with their children. This problem, it's going to increase barriers for many families. It inevitably will lead to greater attrition in this program. So the program is not perfect. A perfect program requires endless resources where every school can offer mentorship. That's not practical. That's fine. The current system will inevitably prevent some, I can't say this confidently. I've heard from elementary teachers that there are sufficient places in French immersion that everyone can get placement somewhere if they want to. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have that data. So if it's not actually changing whether or not students can gain placement into the program in general, the current system at least minimizes transportation burden across the system. Some households may have a greater burden, while others will have less of a burden. The previous delegate is a perfect example. So the sibling consideration didn't function the way it, I mean, I'm not an expert in her situation, but it didn't function the way it was supposed to. And now she has to drive 52 kilometers a day to have her second child in French immersion. That is an example of what is going to happen more and more when the sibling consideration is officially phased out. Okay, so it's a balance, and I don't think this was thought through well.
Trustees, any other further questions of clarification, keeping in mind that the next agenda item deals with this very subject? Seeing none. Oh, Trustee Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to be moving again just to refer this to staff for their review.
Well, it is the next agenda item. So if there's something that the delegation said that you want to ask staff about,
no, just
you could ask it in the next agenda.
Okay, just this presentation and for them to consider. So nothing specific.
So according to the delegation procedure, referring it to staff because this is on the policy change, the procedural change. It's already on the agenda, so you can't refer it to staff. So we'll discuss it when it comes up. And if there's something that you found particularly convincing from the delegation, you can ask staff to respond to that in this meeting. Seeing no further questions, thank you for your time. And as noted, you are free to stay for the conclusion of this exciting meeting. So the next agenda item is in fact the French immersion procedural change and Superintendent Landry. And look forward to perhaps answering some of your questions about accessibility of the program. No pressure. Go ahead, Superintendent Landry.
Yeah, just waiting for, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just waiting for some slides. Okay, thanks to the delegate for presenting. Appreciate the perspective. I'm just going to share some data and some rationale around the change, and I'm happy to answer any questions trustees might have. So for next school year, as has been noted, priority will no longer be given to siblings of current FI students registering for grade 2 FI. Under the new system, every eligible applicant from the home school will have an equal opportunity to access French immersion through a transparent lottery process. I think the delegate noted it's not a perfect system as it is, and the changes that we're proposing are to try to ensure that every student at the WRVSB has an equal opportunity to access FI. So why the change? Under the current approach, chances of being admitted into FI are impacted by whether you're an only child. Are you the first child attending FI? Or do you have siblings in FI? And those three circumstances create advantages for some and disadvantages for others. We also did a sector scan, and the approach to admissions are not consistent across the province. Some offer sibling priority, others do not. So there was no consistent trend when we looked at our peer boards of how they treated this particular aspect of registration. Next slide, please. So if we just look at the past 2 years of data, I think it illustrates the picture. So in 24-25, we had just over 1,400 applicants for French immersion, and we were able to place just over 1,100, almost 1,120 students. Siblings placed ahead of other students. There was 349 that year, which represented about 31.2% of available spots. So the chances of a non-sibling being placed were 72.1%. For the current school year, 25-26, same stats, our stat categories apply, number of applicants, just over 1,300, number placed, 1,079, siblings placed ahead of other students, 379, so it was 35.1% for this year, and the chances of a non-sibling being placed were 75.6%. So as you can see, there is some percentage, about a third of our spots under the current system that are automatically taken before we get to the lottery. Next slide. But that is just one part of the picture. The variance between schools is quite large. Some schools, only 4.5% of spaces are taken. At others, it's as high as 65%. So if we look at Chicopee Hills, Driftwood, Hespeler, Lesterby, Pearson, all had above 60% of their available FI spaces taken by siblings. So if we only had 10 spots, 6 of them were gone before we got to the lottery. Another 9 schools had 40 to 59% of their spots assigned to siblings before the lottery. And in total, 28 of the 42 FI schools have over 30% of their grade 2 FI spots taken by siblings before other applicants have a chance, right? So what we're trying to get at is create a level playing field so all students have a similar chance to get into FI, recognizing that it's a finite number of spaces that we have. Next slide. If we applied the new criteria over the past 2 years, I'm not going to go through all of it, but basically the chances of any student getting a spot would be about 78.9%, in 24-25, so an increase from 72.1% previously. And for the current year, it would have been about 83%. Every student would have had an 83% chance of getting admitted into FI. Previously, under the old approach, it was 75.6%. Next slide might be it. Yeah, happy taking questions.
Trustees, any questions for Superintendent Landry? Trustee Watson.
Thank you. Through you to staff. So I'm really concerned, I'm really worried about this. And when I looked at the numbers from 2024-25 to 25-26, we lost 100 French immersion students. So if you look at the numbers, I don't have them in front of me, but from last year to this year, 100. And so my concern is we added an extra 7% to the 75.6. And through that, we're not even really gonna, like, and I don't see anything about what will happen to the other families when they sort of have to drive separate ways to drop their children off. We don't have stats on that. We don't have percentages. As the delegate said, we haven't done consultation. We haven't talked to parents about that. And I understand there's a pressure to try and please everyone and make sure that everyone feels that they're getting a fair shot. But we also have to consider that we have a competitor, and that's the coterminous board. And they give siblings priority. And so, and not only that, but from what I understand, I could be wrong, but they'll even let students enter and make sure that they know what grade and the information. But it's almost like we are giving an invitation to our families to, well, if you don't like it here, go to the Catholic board because they're giving sibling priority. So my question is, did we consider that at all? Did we talk to the Catholic board? Are we willing to maybe look at an alternative as the delegation had talked about, like a lottery for families? It seems to me that we're trying to fix a problem, but we're creating a whole new problem.
Superintendent Landry.
Through the chair, thank you for the questions. I'll try and address a few points they tried to make. So I think when you were talking about, we lost 100 FI students. I can't remember what the term or the figure was that you used. I think you're looking at the number of students placed, right? I think it was 1,079 in a year, and the prior year was higher. That just is a result of staffing, and where we might have had 2 sections of FI in one year because of demand. Next year it's 1 section, so we didn't lose FI students. Just the number of spaces that we had to offer went down. In terms of consultation, what I would say is that the proposed or the changes that we're recommending are actually based on quite extensive consultation over the past 10 years. When we hear from all the families that didn't get in because they don't have a sibling, almost, right? I didn't have a chance. So we have consulted. I understand some families may feel disadvantaged, right? But they are coming from a position right now where they automatically get it. Okay, now we're saying everyone just has an equal chance to get in, right? So we have consulted. We didn't just come up with this idea. We did, like I say, do a sector scan. The Catholic board does it one way. They also, I think, only have 4 schools that offer it. We're 10 times that size, right? So we have to do what's in the best interest of our board. And they can do what's in the best interest of theirs.
Paula?
Thank you. So when I read the chart, it said for 2024-25, total French immersion applicants, 1,417.
Yeah.
And then 2025-26, total French immersion applicants, 1,305.
Just fewer people applied.
Yeah, that's what was my point.
Right. But when we know that we can't offer spots to everyone as it is, families make decisions on whether or not to apply for FI based on a variety of factors, right? I can't comment on why they may not have applied. Could have been the size of the grade cohort. Could have had a smaller grade 2 cohort coming in. I don't know. But it's not like we have lost them to somewhere, they just didn't apply.
I have another question.
I'll come back to you after I hear from other trustees. Trustee Weston?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Can you speak to the concern about families that would have to drive to multiple schools if their second child or third child didn't get into French immersion as they would have previously been automatically enrolled?
Yeah, that is a challenge that some families may encounter. With all students having about an 83% chance, I'd like to see the data, after we have implemented this. Students will not be required to leave their current school. They can choose, if I'm at Southridge, for example, my youngest didn't get in, they can stay at Southridge. Maybe not in the French immersion program, right? We do have a core French program. But if French immersion is their priority, then they may have to look elsewhere. We acknowledge that it's not going to be a perfect solution. But I would say that those families that aren't getting in now are already faced with that decision. Is FI important enough for me to drive 52 kilometers each way for a day?
Follow-up, Trustee Weston? No? Was there another hand? No? Okay, back to you, Trustee Watson.
Thank you, through you to staff. And I guess my question, like, since this is new and it sounds like we're just gonna, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see, and if there's, let's just say, there's a bit of an uproar. Do we plan on tracking this and presenting this information to the trustees? Or are we still open to maybe looking at a different way? Like, for me, it just seems like we're trying to fix a problem here, so we're gonna come over here. And now we're gonna have a whole new set of problems with parents and being upset. So is there any flexibility where it will be tracked and information will be recorded and we'll be able to review this decision in the future? Or is this just a done deal?
Superintendent Landry?
Yeah, through the chair, what I would say is that the amount of data that we collect with regards to French immersion registration specifically is quite high. And this is obviously something that we're going to want to collect data on and look at after we've gone through the process to see how it worked out. What were, how many siblings were displaced, right? We want to understand what that is. And until we go through the first year of the registration, we don't have any of that data. So we will be monitoring it very closely. And I think we're always trying to amend or adjust policy or procedure in this case, based on the data.
Okay, follow-up?
So will that information come back to the board?
Chair, I don't have any problem bringing it back.
So perhaps once the registration process is complete for the coming school year, it could be scheduled through agenda development as a staff follow-up item?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. No other questions? I did want to remind trustees, this is simply for information, but we did have a French immersion ad hoc committee that actually predated my time on the board, and then I joined it in progress. It reported in 2019, and that is actually what led to the change in grade access. And I will say that we did hear a lot of concerns about difficulty accessing the program for families without an older sibling in the program. So there was, I think, a 4-year process that committee sat for, quite extensive consultation. There were students, educators, parents on that committee as well. So that wraps up that agenda item, and I think you are, Trustee Watson?
Thank you. Just to add to what you said, so this French immersion committee, that motion was brought forward by Ted Martin and myself, and the whole premise was to strengthen the French immersion program, to make it a stronger, vibrant, robust French immersion, looking at transportation and a whole number of things. I'm just not sure that this is.
Okay, thank you for that point. I guess I took a risk in providing that information that if someone would want to respond to it, so that's completely fair game. The next agenda item is the bank borrowing resolution, which you will see on folio 1. This is an annual thing. So I will invite Superintendent Landry to speak to that, and then I'll ask for a mover in a second.
Thank you. Through the chair, as noted on folio 1, this is an annual report that we bring to the board requesting authorization to borrow up to $65 million to fund short-term cash flow needs if required. What I will do is reference the chart on folio 5, which shows a graph of our net cash position throughout the last fiscal year. And what you'll note is that at no time through last year did we need to borrow or access the facility. So this is something that we request, so we have authorization to do it if we need to, but it's not something we've had to utilize.
Okay, I would like a mover and seconder, and then we can have discussion if any. Trustee Weston, seconded by Trustee Radlin. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And any opposed? Abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you, Superintendent Landry. You can return to your seat, and we'll call Senior Manager Hager to the podium for the next agenda item. That is the facilities partnership. Go ahead.
Good evening. I apologize in advance if my voice is a little crackly. We're coming a bit of a cold here. In 2015, the Ministry of Education released its community planning and partnerships guideline to encourage school boards to regularly share planning information with community organizations. Information sharing enables school boards and other entities to collaborate, benefiting boards, students, and the community while optimizing the use of public assets owned by school boards. Our board policy 1011, which is community planning and facility partnerships, guides opportunities to share facilities with community partners when building new schools, undertaking significant renovations, and considering the use of unoccupied space. Annually, we send out a letter to the entities on our community partners list, inviting them and the general public to a meeting where we identify upcoming projects as outlined in the long-term accommodation plan. This year's notification letter was sent to our partners on September 3rd. And we have yet to receive an expression of interest in the list of projects that are shared on folios 8 and 9. I will admit there is a typo in the title on folio 8. It should say 2020 to 2030, 20 or 200 or something. In our region, we do have several fantastic examples of facility partnerships, and we hope to continue that in the future. Partners can reach out to us at any point in time. It does not have to be on this particular meeting. This is just one of the statutory meetings that we hold annually. So thank you for your time this evening, and if there are any questions I may have.
So this report is for information. There's no motion required to receive something for information. Do trustees have any questions? Trustee Radlin, followed by Trustee Weston.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a question of clarification. So in your appendix A, you list schools, and you have short-term actions and medium to long-term actions. I'm not sure I quite understand what that would be.
Okay, through the chair. So within our long-term accommodation plan, we identified where we might be looking to do some capital construction. And so these under the short-term ones are any of the projects that were identified over the first half of the long-term accommodation plan as our priorities. So it's not necessarily that we have been able and successful in receiving capital in order to construct these projects, but they were identified as 5-year term priorities. And then the second one, the 26 to 2030 would have been more of our medium to long-term priority projects. Does that help clarify at all?
Well, just follow up. So this information is here because it is potential community space that we can offer. Is that why it's part of this presentation?
Through the chair, what we've done with this table is identify future projects so that if there is a community partner that is interested in co-building with us, these would be, we're forthcoming with information about what our plans are, and so that we can collaborate early on so that people aren't coming out to us at the last minute asking whether they could build something onto one of our buildings when they've already completed design.
Thank you for that. Trustee Weston?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just curious, you say details for the next funding round have not been released. Is there a general timeline that we're working?
Through the chair, after this report was written, the details were released. The capital priorities submission date for our business cases is due October 8th.
Excellent. Any follow-up?
Just follow up, so we'd be looking at the things that are in the short-term actions, be looking at these kinds of projects?
Correct. Our team is meeting tomorrow to assess which projects meet all the criteria as outlined by the ministry in this latest round, and what will qualify for a submission.
And does that priority list then come to the board meeting at the end of the month?
To the chair. Historically, we have brought that for information.
Any further questions? I see none. It was helpfully pointed out to me that I erred in prioritizing Trustee Watson's question as a non-member of the committee. You're entitled to ask questions, but if other trustees who are members of the committee have questions, they would go before you in the future. So no fault of your own. You're right to put up your hand. I should have remembered that. On folio 10, the new Southeast Cambridge Joint Use Elementary School Boundary Review. Go ahead.
Wait till the presentation comes up.
There is a motion on this one.
Got a little bug that's buzzing. Okay. Good evening. So we are here this evening to request the initiation of the boundary review process for the new Southeast Cambridge Elementary School. Sarah West, here, one of our senior planners, is here with me this evening, and she will be taking the lead on this review. The new school is a joint use facility between our board and the Waterloo Catholic District School Board. It's currently under construction at 605 Wesley Boulevard in Cambridge, and we are targeting an opening date of September 2026. We do need to establish a new attendance boundary before opening the school. This is in line with Administrative Procedure 4991, boundary reviews. The review will involve Chalmers Street and Moffat Creek Public Schools, as well as several development areas. The review is motivated by several factors. The new school opening is intended to relieve the enrollment pressure at Chalmers and Moffat, which are both operating or are projected to be operating above capacity. Several development areas are already assigned to temporary holding schools, and more are planned, meaning that there are more students coming in the future years. And we're currently using temporary accommodation to manage overflow. The new school should alleviate some of that. And there's also a priority to establish a contiguous boundary that will promote walkability. It's important to be clear what this boundary review can and cannot change. We are only considering the attendance area for the new school. We're not looking at grade configurations or closing schools. Also, we're not considering French immersion as part of the new school within this review. As for timeline, we are aligning the review schedule so that families are aware of boundary changes ahead of kindergarten registration for the 26-27 school year, and so that staffing decisions can be made in time. So if we do nothing, which is maintain the current boundaries and not open the new school, you can see on the chart that both Chalmers Street and Moffat Creek are projected to be significantly over capacity. And that's under the status quo, Chalmers is projected to pierce 700 students, which is about 300% of utilization of its facility. So that's the on the ground capacity, which excludes the porta-pack structure that exists there today. And Moffat Creek is projected to pierce 900 students, which is about 150% utilization. You can see in the pinky red color, the volume of projected new students from new housing developments within those development areas, demonstrating a warrant for an additional school in the area. The various development areas are currently holding at Chalmers Street or Moffat, depending on grade. Slide. So we have added in our initial report scenario 1, which is our initial boundary proposal to launch community engagement. The key elements include redirecting part of the Chalmers Street boundary to which is northeast of Dundas Street South to the new school, directing several existing development areas currently assigned to Chalmers Street for JK-6 to the new school, and some very minor changes to Moffat Creek's JK-6 boundary. However, several sections of its 7-8 boundary are directed to the new school. Under this scenario, the projections are more balanced. Chalmers Street's utilization drops significantly. Enrollment at Moffat Creek is still high, but much less extreme. And the new school fills up over time with anticipated growth. These projections can be found on folio 27 within the initial report, or folio 27 of your package. And this scenario aims to reduce temporary accommodation for walkability and establish a stable boundary. The Boundary Review Steering Committee is open to further scenario development or refinement as the process continues to be informed by community input. Slide. Which leads me to the community engagement plan. So this boundary review will include a robust community engagement across multiple phases. We're showing 6 of them up there. So starting now, we're doing the information sharing. Then we'll be gathering feedback in October and November, refining the scenarios in early November, producing some draft recommendations, which we will share with the community and obtain final input on those draft recommendations in late November. Then we're aiming to do reporting back to this committee in December. Some of our engagement methods may include online tools, surveys, virtual or face-to-face open houses, role-based consultations, interactive mapping tools on our website, some translations to target key populations, as well as any accessibility supports to attend any of our meetings, should that be necessary. Some particular effort will be made to reach out to families in development areas, as well as newcomer families and those using childcare in the area, so that the most impacted can have a voice. And the full engagement plan is listed in the initial report starting on folio 29. So next steps include meeting with the Boundary Review Steering Committee and ensuring communications are ready to go, that we've got the mapping tools up functioning on our website so that the community engagement is meaningful and timely. We have scheduled our first public meeting, at least in our calendars, for the start of October, and we're aiming for a second public meeting in November. In December, the Business Services Standing Committee will receive the final recommendation. And once the board makes the final decision, we can start with transition planning with the goal of opening the school in September 2026. So to conclude, I'd just like to highlight that we anticipate, what we anticipate are the major implications and where trustees may want to pay particular attention. So we have some positives. We are opening a new school, and it's going to alleviate some of the pressure on our existing facilities, reducing our need for temporary accommodation. We have the opportunity to create a boundary that's walkable, stable, and better aligned with growth. Some of our challenges, and these are often what we see in any boundary review, that some families will be reassigned and change is hard. So especially when families have attachments and their students have attachments and routines. So communication will be key throughout this process. We will have to work out some transportation logistics and do some careful analysis. We also have somewhat constrained timelines, and that we ideally would like to make decisions in time for registration and staffing. So that's why we're aiming for a December decision. In terms of financial impact, as of right now, there are no major costs beyond what's already budgeted for. However, the implementation may require some additional thought. The recommendation before you tonight is on folio 10. We are looking forward to your input on this engagement plan, and we recommend that the committee approve initiating this boundary review process.
Okay. I would invite a trustee to move and second the recommendation. Trustee Radlin, seconded by Trustee Ramsey. Are there questions? Trustee Weston.
Thank you, through you, Chair. My question is, I could be wrong, this seat feels different than previous boundary reviews. I feel like previous boundary reviews, there was, as part of the boundary review committee, there were members from the schools that were going into the new school. So you would, in this case, have parent and staff reps from Chalmers and Moffat Creek. And I'm not seeing that in here, so I'm wondering, is that a change? And who would be on that review committee, if that is a change?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, observations. Yes, so well, you've been on a committee before, so you're well aware. So we did over the last year update our boundary review administrative procedure, and this has shifted some of the focus from the engagement perspective onto more broader community engagement. Eliminating the parent committee was, we had changed it to the boundary review committee. We had both a staff steering committee, a boundary review steering committee, which was staff only, and then we had a boundary review committee, which involved parent community representatives. We found, and did kind of again a scan of what other boards are doing, but we found that engagement was really quite low in the last few reviews that we did at that parent committee level, and participation as well. It was very challenging to get people to commit the time. And the added input, although valuable, I think people are quite hesitant sometimes, especially when meeting virtually, to participate. And so we actually ended up getting a more fruitful feedback when we went out to the broader public meetings. So in replacement of that, we are offering alternatives, whether that be that we have some more school-based meetings, or perhaps like a school council meeting, where we might be able to come out and engage a wider variety of people, and not just simply those community members.
Thank you. Through you. So I like that we're getting more feedback in this way and going out, and so that's good news. I like the idea of going to the councils. So the two public you talked about, I think 2 public meetings in October and November to gather that feedback. I assume would one be the initial boundary review, you'll gather feedback, and then the next public meeting would be optional scenarios if they came up? Is that how you foresee that?
Through the chair, what we envision is presenting scenario 1 at the first public meeting, and gaining any feedback from that. And we will take that back as staff, refine it, come up with some recommendations based on what we'd heard out from the community engagement. and present them back at the final public meeting what our draft recommendations would be that we intend to put in the final report. So then we can gain kind of some feedback on any, like, did we get it right kind of thing, in terms of the recommendations. So that's the current plan. These things tend to evolve depending on sort of what we end up hearing and whether we need to add more engagement opportunities. It will remain to be seen, as it's been incredibly quiet so far. So we're very interested to see what the community does have to say about this.
Any other questions? Trustee Watson.
Thank you. Through you to staff, on folio 27. When we look at the numbers, the one where it was 300% for Chalmers chart, okay, folio 25. So looking at these numbers, would the conclusion be that when we look at this new school and sending children, that a lot of these students will be coming from the Chalmers area? Just because there's 300 as opposed to the 150% at the increase at Moffett. So it looks like, even though it's a mature old neighborhood, it looks like that is where we're going to get a bulk of students. And besides the area which is developing around the school.
Yeah, through the chair, there is a significant portion of Chalmers' boundary that is on, not in the older neighborhood, but on the northeast side of Dundas Street. That is a newer subdivision, and there are areas of that subdivision that are also still building out. But if you look on the scenario 1 map, you can kind of see what the difference is, and where we would be drawing students from. And I don't know whether it would be helpful to put that comparison map back up, but the vast majority of the new school boundary does draw from Chalmers.
Any follow-up?
I do have a separate question.
Seeing no one else on the speakers list, oh, Trustee Weston, go second, and then I'll go ahead.
Well, thank you. Through you, Chair. I guess my question is about grades 7 and 8, and would this committee be considering any grandfathering for kids that want to stay at Moffett Creek to finish out that part of the consideration?
Yeah, through the chair, historically, this board has focused on opening schools JK to 7 only, and then allowing students that would have already transitioned to a school from into grade 7, from grade 6 to grade 7, would be able to remain at that site for the final grade 8 year. We foresee this operating the same way. Usually that's how we do our modeling. So we would anticipate the 26-27 school year as grade offerings at school would be JK to 7. And then for 27-28, it would go up to grade 8.
Follow-up?
Thank you.
Trustee Radley.
Thank you. Something. With so many students from Chalmers going to the new school, because is there any concern about the future of Chalmers in terms of, because then it's going to be drawing mainly from the older neighborhood? Is that area still sustainable?
Through the chair, we do find that particular neighborhood is relatively stable from an enrollment perspective. There are a number of dwellings there that turn over quite regularly. So it hasn't, its existing community hasn't been in any significant decline. There are also significant numbers of development pockets in around this area that if we needed to boost up one of the school's enrollments or we were seeing decline, we certainly wouldn't struggle to find anyone to backfill that from.
Trustee Watson.
Thank you, through you to staff. So historically, we've had parents sit on committees, and I understand the rationale because sometimes parents can't make it, sometimes staff can't. Sometimes parents feel intimidated if they hold a different position than maybe what other parents want. And I'm really kind of concerned that we're moving that layer of transparency, because when parents could sit there and actually be part of the discussion, I think there was more of a comfort level. So I'm a little concerned that, parents may feel that, okay, I've given all this information, now everybody's gonna run to the back room and they're gonna make the decision, and I'm outside waiting. So I wondered if you looked at maybe including PIC or providing that. I just think there needs to be some sort of I understand we can gather the information, but there's a disconnect to where parents, had a front row where they could actually sit and listen to the perspective of the principal, or listen to the perspective of the superintendent, or, business services, or, they could be a part of it. So have you thought of any other way that might be helpful where they would be included in those discussions and not just give me your information and then we're gonna go. Is there like public, making it public, or I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking at the top of my head.
Through the chair, sorry, this reply or whatever it is really bothering me. All the public information sessions or public meetings that we host, as well as any of the community feedback that we receive, we will be summarizing it and pulling out key themes, which we will then post on our website. So we're trying to make that as transparent as possible. Here are the things that we are hearing, and indicating then how we're addressing or dealing with those themes. When we had these boundary review committees or working groups with our boundary studies in the past, there was a small segment of parents that certainly were able to be brought along in the process and hearing a lot of the dialogue. I don't think we want to necessarily completely cut that off. But what we have been finding in the last probably 3 reviews that we've done is that interaction has, I don't know what's changed, honestly, but we are not getting the same dialogue back and forth with the parents on that committee. They might be listening, but we're not gaining anything from a staff perspective that we're not getting elsewhere when we're doing engagement. We find people do focus very specifically on their situation and how it impacts them personally, and not necessarily always thinking broadly, which I think staff are able to bring that perspective, is like, we're hearing from a broad cross section of people rather than, just so-and-so who lives in this neighborhood. So ideally, we're keeping everything transparent. There are other options we've considered, whether that it aligns well with the process that we have, but school council meetings, offering to come and speak and have more not one-on-one, but interactive dialogue at school council meetings, that it's very specific to that school, and people that might be affected, and thinking Chalmers probably most specifically in this particular case.
Sort through you, just follow up. So is there any way, and I think the only thing that might help is the justification behind certain, so usually, like in the past, there was extensive minutes of board meetings. So people actually got to see all the dialogue, and okay, so I understand why is there any way to provide that information so that they're, there's a gap there and they're not quite understanding how you got from A to C. And now you're just showing up at a parent council and saying, this is what we're gonna do. So, maybe more information and just like, a reasoning why decisions, a little bit more explanation.
Yeah, through the chair, it's our hope that by summarizing the feedback that we've heard into sort of themes and then in the final report, I don't know if you recall reading the last boundary review we did for Oak Creek, but our final report summarized each one of those things and how we were addressing any of the concerns that had been brought forward. Or whether or not we were able to, but at least then it was transparent that, you know, we heard this and here is kind of the response. So that it, you know, you don't have to comb through 10 different meeting minutes to try to figure out whether somebody asked a question that you to get answered.
All right, I have a couple of questions. I was waiting to see whether they would be asked. Where do students from Chalmers Street go for 7 and 8?
Currently, they are attending Moffat.
And is that going to be affected by this review?
I apologize, we didn't actually throw the 7-8 boundaries on here, but students who would go to the new school would be, it would encompass its own JKD, there would be no heater. Yeah. Confirming, but those in the scenario 1 map that's on folio 28, anybody in the yellow area still at Chalmers would feed to Moffat for 7-8. We're not proposing turning Chalmers Street into a JKD.
Okay. All right, thank you. So since there are no further questions, I think we can move to a vote on the motion, which has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Scroll back up to the top for the agenda. So apparently takes more scrolling than I thought. All right, there are no other board reports. We have 5 minutes for questions. Questions? What's that? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to rise and reconvene for the in-camera session. And did we want to take a 5-minute break? So we'll rise and reconvene at 7:25. So motion from Trustee Weston, seconded by Trustee Radlin. All those in favor of rising and reconvening? Okay. So we'll do that.